guess my first question is, what is time management? I'd like you all to take a moment to write down the definition of time management right next to this slide. Go ahead. You see a lot of people that are somewhat staring aimlessly and struggling, and you know, that's okay, because that would be me if I was just asked to do what you were asked to do. I think that might be a part of the problem. I mean, defining time management is a pretty tough thing to do, and maybe that gives us some insights as to why it's such a struggle for so many of us. So I went to the dictionary online when I was preparing this presentation, and I decided that I needed to at least break this thing down into the two parts that it is. So what is time? And time read is a system of those sequential relations that any event has to another as past, present, or future. I don't know about you, but that doesn't help me at all. It just doesn't do a darn thing for me. Management's a little easier to get your arms around. Management is the act, manner, or practice of handling direction or control. The act, manner, or practice of handling direction or control. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, let me reframe this a little. If there's one thing I do know about time, it's that we all get the same amount of it every day, 24 hours. So if time consists of 24 hours and management is the act, manner, or practice of handling direction or control, then isn't time management the act, manner, or practice of handling the direction or control of those 24 hours that are given to us? And isn't time management really about prioritization? Isn't it really about how you choose to use those same 24 hours that the neighbor next to you has? And isn't a successful time manager the individual who uses that time that everybody in this room has equivalently, most effectively? You see, I think that a lot of us think time management is about time blocking. I think a lot of us think it's about a lot of things that it frankly really isn't about. And the first thing that we need to explore in examining time management and execution is our mind. Now, for some of you, the translation of time management looks like this: worn out, stressed out, on a treadmill all day long and you can't get off. Every day seems like yesterday and none of them are incredibly gratifying. Well, there's a reason for that. And the reason is because I think many of us mismanage time because we use the wrong tool for it. The tool that we tend to use is our mind. And I want to take about the next 20 to 25 minutes to prove to you that your mind is incapable of managing time. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to explore the mystery of our minds. Let me ask you a question. By a show of hands, how many of you have ever had a thought? There's a few people that didn't raise their hand, and I'm a little bit concerned right now. All right, let me go a little further. How many of you have ever had a thought on your way home from work, while you're driving in your car, that prompted you to become very stressed out because it related to something that you forgot to do a couple of hours prior while at work? All of us. All right? How many of you have ever turned off the light, laid down in your bed for a restful night of slumber, pulled the covers over you, had your head hit the pillow, and you thought of something you needed to do tomorrow or something that you didn't do today that caused you to be stressed out? And the next thing you know, your mind starts going. And before you know it, your body tenses up. 10 to 15 minutes later, you have insomnia and you don't get a good night's sleep. Anybody ever have that happen? Yeah. What do you do with those thoughts? Where do they belong? Most people try to keep them in their conscious mind. Now, statistical proof shows that we are only capable of holding up to 10 to 12 thoughts at any given time in our conscious mind. Think of your conscious mind as your desktop. right there, your computer screen. You can only have so many applications open at the bottom of the screen. That's the equivalent of your conscious mind. At which point in time you have exceeded the 10 to 12 conscious thoughts that you're capable of having, you then start putting things down on the floor in your subconscious mind, also known as your hard drive. They get stored in memory, and they take up RAM space. They take up the valuable memory that is required to have creative thought. We literally clog our mind by trying to hold on to so many to-dos. And this is what task saturation is about. Those of you that were at Business Plan 2006 remember seeing the afterburners and that powerful visual that they showed of that plane crashing into the ground and the pilots lost control because they were task saturated. We're going to talk more about task saturation in a few minutes, but this is literally what happens to us, folks. The reason that you had that thought on your way home while you were driving down the highway is because that thought was stored in your hard drive, in your subconscious mind. There came a point in time during the day where you had too many thoughts going on, more than 10 to 12, and you started naturally just storing things out of your conscious mind and into your subconscious mind. And now as you're driving home and your mind is relaxing, these thoughts start popping into your head, just like they did that night when you laid down and your head hit the pillow. So I think that it's fair to say that not all thoughts are created equal, but let me make sure that everybody in this room feels that way. How many of you have had this happen to you by a show of hands? You're driving down the highway, you have a thought. Maybe the thought is, oh my God, I forgot to get that pre-approval letter over to the real estate agent that I needed to get to her. And now you're stressed out, and it's 6:30 at night, and everybody's gone home for the day, and you're worried that that person's going to drop you like a hot rock because they think you provide lousy service. And then somewhat simultaneous to that thought, completely randomly, you have an entirely different thought that has nothing to do with that thought, which is, I need to go pick up my dry cleaning. Anybody ever have anything like that happen before? You have two thoughts that are from totally different areas. Well, how do you choose what to do with those to-dos? I mean, those are two very different things. One of them requires you to have a telephone, be in a specific place, specific time, have the phone number of the individual you need to call. The other one requires you to be across town to pick up dry cleaning before it closes. Now we're holding two thoughts in our conscious mind, taking up valuable memory, valuable creative RAM space. The first key, is for all of us to have a ubiquitous idea capturing tool. You've heard the term ubiquitous used a few times over the course of this seminar. I think Tony used it a couple of nights ago, but just for clarity, ubiquitous means everywhere. So the key is at all times to have an idea capturing tool with you. This is my ubiquitous idea capturing tool. It's taught to me by David Allen. It is a little notepad. People were making fun of me last night as to how small my notepad is, but I will tell you, I never leave home without it, and I keep it in my wallet. And the reason I keep it in my wallet is because I know that my wallet will always be with me because I need my credit cards, my driver's license, etc. I have the ability at all times to capture these thoughts. When I have that thought in the car and I pull over to the side of the road when I've gotten off the freeway and I hit a stoplight, I would just simply reach into my pocket and scribe that note, get it out of my mind and into the beginnings of my system. Today I will be teaching you a system for managing time and tasks and implementing your business plan. But the important thing that we must understand is that the answer is not to try to keep it in our mind, which is what so many of us do. Now, what are some other ideas of ubiquitous idea capturing tools? Your cell phone. Sure, you can call and leave yourself a voicemail. I'm sure many of you actually do that from time to time. I'm not a particular fan of that. It creates an extra step in the process. It's not quite as efficient. I'd rather have you do that, though, than leave it in your head and not get any sleep tonight. Another great one would be what my friend Tom Ward in the front row over here uses like nobody's business, a Trio or a BlackBerry. You could email yourself, dump that thought into your inbox back at the office in Outlook. That works. That works for some. But the key, once again, is to not try to keep it up here, because this was not given to you by God to manage time, to manage tasks. This was given to you to think creatively, to expand your being, to become more fruitful and beneficial and happier. We talked about the fact that valuable RAM space is being taken up by a lack of closing loops. The more loops that you have open, the more tasks that you have not brought to completion, the more stress you will have. I think I'll be able to show you in just a moment just how stressful life can be when I put you through a little exercise. More to that in a minute. Now, in closing, what I'd like to say is that on this subject matter is that we actually go through some exercises on an annualized basis that prove the importance of this. Vacation. What's the first thing that you make sure that you do before you leave for vacation? Close loops, right? What about coming to this seminar? I bet last Friday and Saturday you worked some extra hours, didn't you? I bet you had some meetings with people that you wouldn't normally have, your team, your processor. I bet you checked status on each and every file. You probably called several of your clients and your referral partners to give them status on things. You closed a lot of loops, didn't you, in preparation for coming here so you could have an enjoyable experience. Well, what if every day was like that? What if every day was like the day before a one-week vacation? What if every day consisted of you closing loops and not going home with all of these balls up in the air that needed to be juggled like Chris Bliss last night? Wouldn't life be a lot less stressful? What would it be like at dinner that night when you got home? Would you really be there with your family? When you're talking to them, would you really be thinking about the conversation you're having with them instead of thinking about all the things you need to do tomorrow? Wouldn't that be a wonderful experience for some of us? To close all of our loops every day? I'm going to teach you how to do that. That's what today's session is about.